Hello and welcome to the first video for a three-part series of sections 2 and 3 for DMA 10. We've decided to combine sections 2 and 3 into one lesson because the rules for adding and subtracting integers are the same. So while your text and your homework may break this up into two different sections, we've combined them here for this lecture series. In this video, we're going to review the double sign rules, so how to remove double signs. Then we'll get into the rules for combining integers when we'll actually do our adding and subtraction. And we'll finish off with some practice with some small integers. In the second video, we're going to practice with larger numbers and then work on combined operations. That'll be a little bit of a preview of order of operations, which we'll cover later in this class. And then finally, in part 3, we're going to go over some applications that you'll see in your textbook and in your homework, and some sample word problems as well. Here we have the double sign rules. Make sure you get these in your notes. Before we do any mathematical operation that has double signs, we're going to want to remove those double signs using these following rules. So number 1, if the signs are the same, if they're plus plus or minus minus, we're going to replace these two signs with a plus sign or a positive sign. So in this first example, 4 plus a positive 3. I think it helps if you circle those double signs so we recognize them and write the new sign on top. Since these signs are the same, it's going to be a positive, so 4 plus positive 3 becomes simply 4 plus 3. Again here, remember when we talked about the opposite of an opposite in a previous video, we've got two double signs. We've got a negative and a negative. We'll circle those, and since they're the same, it's going to be a positive. Okay, so 5 minus negative 2 becomes 5 plus 2. Our second rule, if the signs are different, if they're plus minus or minus plus, we're going to replace the two signs with a negative sign. So 4 plus minus 3, since those are different, becomes 4 minus 3. Or 7 minus a positive 9 becomes 7 minus 9. Now we're going to do some practice removing double signs. We're not going to do any calculations here. We're just going to do a little bit of practice getting rid of these signs and turning them into one sign. So our first example, 12 minus a negative 3. We see we have two signs here, okay? And since those signs are the same, they're going to become positive. So 12 minus negative 3 is going to become 12 plus 3. In our second example, 4 plus negative 4, or 14 plus negative 4, again we have a double sign here. Since those are different, it's going to become a minus. So this is going to equal 14 minus 4. Okay. Example number 3, negative 16 minus a positive 4. Double signs right here in the middle. Okay, those signs are different, so we're going to make them a minus. And now we have negative 16 minus 4. In our last example, negative 20 plus a positive 3. Okay, we've got the double signs there again in the middle. Since they're the same, they're going to become a positive. So we now have negative 20 plus 3. So that was some good practice removing double signs from equations. Now we'll start looking at the rules for combining integers. So this is where we're going to do the actual adding and subtracting. At this point we've removed all the double signs and we're ready to add or subtract depending on these rules. Here's the first rule, and again make sure that you have these rules down in your notes. Okay. So rule number 1 is if the signs are the same, we're going to add and keep their sign. Okay. So let's look at this first example here. We have a negative 3 minus 6, so a negative 3 and a negative 6. We use that word negative and minus interchangeably in mathematics. So think of this sign here in the middle, not as an operation of minus, but as the sign of this number 6. It's the sign of the number that it's in front of. Okay. Here, the signs are indeed the same. We've got a negative 3 and a negative 6. So we're going to add these two numbers together. When we find that sum, negative 3 of 3 and 6, that's going to be 9, and we're going to keep the sign of those original numbers, so it's going to be a negative 9. Example 2, is a pretty straightforward addition problem. Notice that there's no sign in front of the 2 here, so it's going to be implied to be a positive sign. We can write that in there to remind us if we need to. So we have a positive 2 and a positive 5. We add these together and we get a 7, and it's going to be a positive 7 since they both started as positives. We don't have to write the plus 7 in because, again, that positive sign is implied when we write 7 by itself. Okay. So note that in the first example we had a subtraction problem, and the second is an addition problem. It doesn't matter what type of problem it is, just apply this rule using the sign in front of the numbers and keep that sign. Our second rule for combining integers, if the signs are different, okay, we're going to subtract the numbers and we keep the sign of the larger number, and I put larger in quotation marks. We want to keep the sign of the number with the largest absolute value, so the biggest digit that we have. As you see in the second example, we'll talk about that. Negative 8 is really less than 4, but it has a larger absolute value, so that's the sign that we're going to keep. In this first example, we have a negative 2 and a positive 9. Those signs are different, so we're going to subtract the small one from the big one. So 9 minus 2 is going to be 7. Okay? So the signs were different. We subtracted them and got 7, and we're going to keep the sign of the larger number. The larger number here is the 9, so this is going to be a positive 7. Okay. In the second example, we have 4 minus 8. Okay. These signs are different. Remember, 4 is implied to be positive, and we have a negative 8. So we're going to subtract these two numbers. Okay. Subtract the small one from the big one, so we do 8 minus 4. And we get 4, and the larger of these two numbers is the 8, so we keep that sign, negative 8. And remember, we know that negative 8 is farther to the left on the number line, so it's really less than the positive 4, but it has the largest absolute value. So that's the sign that we're going to keep. So just to review, the signs are different. We subtract the two numbers, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, largest absolute value. And note that in these examples, the first example is addition and the second is subtraction. It doesn't matter what type of problem we're using. We just apply this rule, and we use the sign in front of the number of the larger number for its sign. All right, let's do some more practice combining integers. In all these examples, you can see that there are no double signs, so we don't have to worry about that. We can just practice those combination rules that we saw in the last two slides of this video. So the first problem, negative 3 plus 7. Okay, negative 3 plus 7. The signs are different, so we're going to subtract these two. 7 minus 3 is going to be a 4, and we keep the sign of the bigger number, okay, which was a 7, so this is going to be positive. Let's see what that would look like on a number line. I'm going to draw a number line here with a scale of 2, so 0, 2, 4, 6. Negative 2, negative 4, negative 6, okay? And let's see what that would look like on our number line. Negative 3 is going to be halfway here between negative 2 and 7, and this plus 7 is going to be a movement to the right 7 places. So let's see what that would look like. That's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that puts us right here at positive 4. So we can use the rules, or we can kind of visualize it on a number line if we need to plot what that answer might look like. All right, now for our second example. We have negative 4 minus 10. Here the signs are the same, so we're going to add these two numbers together. 4 plus 10 is going to be 14. And then we keep their sign, so it's going to be a negative 14. Example number 3, we have 8 plus 12. These are both positive, so we add them together to get 20. And we keep their sign, it stays a positive. Okay. Last example, 13 minus 14. Here the signs are different. Remember, 13 is implied to be positive, so we have a positive and a negative. We're going to subtract these two numbers. 14 minus 13 is 1. And we keep the sign of the bigger number. Negative 14 was bigger, so it's going to be a negative 1. Now it's time to put everything together. We're going to practice combining numbers and also removing the double signs at the same time. So let's look at this first example, 15 minus negative 12. Okay, we've got a double sign here in the middle, a negative, negative. Okay, and since those are the same, it's going to become a plus. So we're going to have 15 plus 12. Okay, we've got a positive and a positive. Signs are the same. We're going to add these two numbers together to get 27, and it's going to remain positive since we started with two positives. Example 2, negative 15 plus a negative 12. Double sign here in the middle. This time they're different, and when they're different, they're going to become a minus. Okay, so this problem is going to translate to negative 15 minus 12. Again, the signs are the same, a negative and a negative. So we're going to add these two numbers together, and we're going to get a negative 27. We kept the signs of the original numbers. Example 3, another double sign in the middle, a minus minus. These are going to become a positive because they're the same. So we get 10 plus 7. These are both positive, so we add them together and get a positive 17. Okay. In our last example, we have negative 8 plus a negative 7. Two double signs in the center. They're different, so it becomes a minus. So when we rewrite this problem, we have negative 8 minus 7. Okay. These signs are the same, so we add the two numbers together to get a 15, and we keep the original sign. Notice how I rewrote each of these examples with a new sign in between. I find that very helpful. That helps us remember what we're doing in every step of the equation. So take the extra time to rewrite these problems with a new sign in between before you do your computation so we don't get sign errors. So to review, in this video we went over the double sign rules. We looked at the rules for combining integers, and then we did some practice with some small numbers. In part 2 of this series, for sections 2 and 3, we're going to cover practice with some larger numbers, okay, and then combined operations where we have a string of numbers that we're going to combine. And then lastly, in part 3, we're going to go over some applications from the book and sample word problems from these sections. Tune in for part 2, coming soon.